The studio lights were brighter than usual that evening, or maybe it only felt that way. The audience buzzed with the familiar excitement that comes before a live conversation, the kind people settle into with smiles and expectations. Cameras hovered, producers counted down, and millions watched from home, ready for charm, humor, and confidence. But something subtle shifted before a single word was spoken. The guests sat quietly, hands folded, eyes thoughtful, as if carrying a weight no spotlight could soften. When the host asked a simple question about love, the pause that followed felt longer than it should have. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't dramatic. It was real. And in that stillness, the room leaned in. When silence speaks louder than words, he answered slowly, his voice lower, more careful than the one audiences were used to hearing. There was no performance, no practiced smile, just honesty. "We don't talk enough about how love can end even when it was real," he said. The room froze, not because the words were shocking, but because they were rare. Screens across the world stopped scrolling. This wasn't a headline grab or a teaser for attention. It was a moment of vulnerability unfolding in real time, the kind that makes people sit up straighter and listen with their hearts instead of their habits. The weight of being a symbol. For years, he had represented something comforting to the public: stability, devotion, a love story that seemed to withstand time. People pointed to it as proof that lasting love was still possible. From the outside, everything looked effortless. Shared laughter, public support, a sense of partnership that felt solid and warm. But love, as he now understood, has layers that no camera can capture. What people see is the highlight reel. What they don't see are the quiet struggles, the private doubts, and the slow changes that happen when two people grow in different directions. Loving fully doesn't mean failing. "I gave everything I had," he continued, swallowing hard. "And so did the other person." His words carried no blame, only truth. Sometimes love doesn't end because it wasn't strong enough. Sometimes it ends because life reshapes people in ways they never expected. That realization rippled through the audience like a quiet wave. No names were mentioned. No details were offered. None were needed. Everyone understood the weight behind the message. Love can be real and still not last forever. And admitting that takes courage. Remembering where it all began. As people listened, memories surfaced, not just his, but theirs too. Early days filled with excitement, long conversations that stretched until sunrise. The feeling of finding home in another person. Love once felt permanent, almost sacred, like something untouched by time. It's easy to believe that when you're standing at the beginning of a story. But time, as it always does, adds chapters no one plans for. It doesn't erase the past. It reshapes it, asking people to grow in ways they never anticipated. The quiet guilt of letting go. In private moments, he admitted, the hardest part wasn't the ending itself, but the guilt that came with it. Letting go of something meaningful feels like betrayal, even when it's necessary. Love doesn't disappear all at once. It fades in fragments, a missed conversation here, a silence there. Two people sitting in the same room, feeling miles apart without knowing how it happened. These moments don't arrive loudly. They slip in quietly, almost politely, until one day they can no longer be ignored. What endings don't take away. "The hardest part," he said, his eyes shining under the studio lights, "is accepting that endings don't erase what came before." The love wasn't lost. It was lived. It existed fully, honestly, and beautifully for the time it was meant to. Somewhere in the audience, someone wiped away tears. Others nodded silently. People recognized themselves in those words. They understood that an ending doesn't cancel the meaning of what once was. It simply marks a transition. A crowd that felt seen. When the show ended, reactions poured in. Messages filled comment sections, not with judgment, but with gratitude. Many shared their own stories of love that didn't last, but still mattered deeply. Others thanked him for saying what they had never found the words for. The moment had become bigger than one person's experience. It had opened a door for honest conversation in a world that often demands perfect love stories with neat, happy endings. Beyond the headlines. Headlines tried to frame the moment as shocking, unexpected, or dramatic. But what stayed with people wasn't the mystery. It was the sincerity. In a culture obsessed with polished narratives, he chose to speak an imperfect truth. He didn't offer answers or closure. He offered something rarer: permission. Permission to acknowledge that love can be both beautiful and painful. Permission to grieve without shame. Permission to accept that not all meaningful stories end the same way. Alone with the memories. Later that night, in the quiet of his home, the noise of the studio faded. Memories surfaced like old photographs. The laughter, the arguments, the promises whispered in the dark. Love had shaped him, even in its ending, and while his heart ached, there was also gratitude. Gratitude for having felt something real, for having shared a chapter that mattered. "I'm not broken," he said softly to himself. "I'm changed." And there was peace in that realization. When stories connect strangers. In the days that followed, letters arrived from strangers. Some shared stories of love lost. Others spoke of relationships that ended quietly, without drama, but with deep emotion. Many said they felt less alone after hearing his words. He realized then that vulnerability creates connection. By speaking honestly, he had given people a language for their own experiences, a way to understand their past without resentment or regret. Redefining what love means. Love stories, he came to understand, don't always end with forever. Some end with lessons. Some end with mutual respect. Some end with heartbreak that slowly softens into understanding. And that doesn't make them failures. It makes them human. Love doesn't lose its value just because it changes form. It leaves behind growth, perspective, and the quiet knowledge that something meaningful once existed. Carrying the truth forward. As he stepped into the next chapter of his life, one truth stayed with him. Love ending doesn't mean love failed. It means it was brave enough to exist. Somewhere out there, people still believed in love. Not because it lasts forever, but because even when it ends, it leaves something beautiful behind. And sometimes, that is more than enough.